Good evening, good morning, or good afternoon. All depends on when you decide to watch this shit show of a show. With that being said, as always, I am being joined by Shadow and Sons. It is 12:16 in the morning here. I have no idea where it is in the land of make believe, the land of avocados and broken dreams. That was
How
actually
you been,
pretty
little
good.
brother?
Tired, long day. Long day. Then I took my mom out because she was having a long week, one would say.
Hmm.
And I love my mom. Don't get me wrong. I think everybody should be good to their moms. My mom likes to every once in a while tie one on, which I don't falter. And so I took her out drinking to one of my favorite places. They have the best wings.
No way. Absolutely not.
Ah, the best wings in this area. They deep fry them, then they no, they smoke them, then they deep fry them. They're amazing. No breaded.
I I never understood the whole wings thing. I'm not a dark meat fan unless it's women, and I don't. There's not a lot of meat on them. It's skin and fat, and you know.
I like my wings.
I I
I'm to
I
each their own.
let me put it this way. I don't know why they didn't just do drumsticks if they're just going to do two parts of the chicken. Drumsticks have a little more meat on them. They're easier to hold. One bone and you're done. You just,
This is, I mean, the wings. The wings is the entire wing from the leg up to the pointy bit. And there's a. I was watching a traveling cooking show, whatever, and this guy was talking about how to eat wings correctly, and he gets to because the wing part without the knobby bit, you know what I'm talking about, is
Mhm,
called a flat, and there's two bones in there. Now, when you pull
mhm.
one bone out, then you just take the whole rest of it in your mouth and pull it out, and it's I like it. I mean, like I said, to each their own. But they're really good. I mean, it's dollar wing night, so a minimum of five, so you're out $5. I get 10 because, like you said, there isn't much meat to the wings,
Mhm.
and I just don't drink anymore. To be honest, I mean, I do and I don't, but mainly I don't.
Good for you, man.
And trust me, there are moments. There are definitely
I
moments.
hear you. I drank like a fish. I drank so much in my life, but I got to a point, where it wasn't really going to be beneficial as being a father. Jackie was 3, he's 17. A couple more years from now, maybe he and I'll have a beer, tie one on, get into a fight, something. I don't know. But just no craving for it. Every once in a while, to be honest, I'd rather have a freaking nice freaking cup of coffee, and I can't do that either. I mean, I could, but I'm not. I don't want to get back on the caffeine because caffeine. People have no idea what it does to you. You know, because it's really a low grade form of speed. It
Well,
makes
yeah.
it makes everything work. It makes everything work harder and faster, and that's got to take years off your life if you think about it.
stepping outside takes stepping outside and breathing the air that we breathe these days will take years off of your life.
I live up in the high desert, so we don't get any smog.
Oh, we don't have. It's just
But breathing in the crazy that will kill you.
that's why I don't sleep with crazy. No, I do sleep with crazy. I don't sleep with stupid though. This will take years off your life, but damn, it tastes good.
I know it killed my old man. He didn't drink, he didn't smoke. He drank 2 to 4 liters of soda every day, and eventually it did him in.
Mm. This coming Saturday is my daughter's first homecoming. Oh damn! And so she's excited about that. I'm excited about that because
Yeah,
homecoming is just
this year's Jackie's last. And
Wow.
you know, I feel bad because he missed out on so many of the things that I did and experienced just between COVID and his particular generation doesn't do certain things anymore. They don't hang out, they don't get together, they don't do stuff together anymore. It's
It's weird. It is definitely weird. Everything's just changed a lot. And
a lot.
I don't. I mean, I think there's this term that got popular early mid '90s called helicopter parents,
Mm,
and I think because of that, I think things just changed drastically. I was talking to my mom actually about this earlier on today, because I remember trick or treating up until like 11 o'clock at night, then going
sure.
home.
Yep.
And now you're basically done trick or treating at what, 8,
Eight.
9?
Yeah. Well, you gotta factor in a couple of things: gang violence, or the fear or threat of,
Right.
and then there's the child abductions,
Yeah.
and whether it's real or not, the fear of those things have kept children and parents keeping their children closer to home. Because when I was growing up, if a kid got kidnapped, he was ransomed back.
Yeah, they don't even ransom, they just run off with them these days.
Because there's more
Um,
to be made, trafficking the child than there was
yeah.
in the 70s, the 80s, even into the 90s. Now you don't want to know what happens to your kid. You just pray that they may meet a quick and painless end, which is not likely. Can
I
you
got
imagine
and
for
yeah.
that? Wishing for that? Fuck. That's It's better to be safe than sorry. And unfortunately, in my neighborhood, there really were no kids for him to go out and play with.
Yeah.
So, what are you going to do? Keep him inside or take him outside? And which we did, but not as much as we probably could have. But
Every once in a while
it turned
growing
out
up,
pretty
you
good.
hear every so often, well, there was no social media when I was growing up. There was definitely no social media when you were growing up. And every so often you hear on the news that a kid was abducted from school, but it
Mhm.
wasn't as broadcast.
Yeah, they didn't have to have a special code on the phone with the Amber Alert, like they do now. You might hear about it on the nightly 5 o'clock news. They'd say this kid's missing, and then everybody would go look for him. Now, you know, on average, three kids a day, three people, excuse me, three people every day in every state disappear, never to be heard from again.
I would like to say that we hear more about it. I'd like to unfortunately say that it was just as coming back then as it is now, but we just didn't hear about it.
Mm,
But it's not. It very much it's not. And because I mean, you always hear stories of a parents. And the most common ones I heard wasn't so much drug or gang related, or what we got now. It was well, it was either a horrible person, a monster running off with a kid, or it was two separated parents,
yep.
and one swooped in, picked the kid up from school, and head across state lines for one reason or the other.
Right.
That was
Yep.
the most common, for
And
me growing.
it's still up there. I would put it at somewhere around 50%, but not exceeding.
Right.
And
Um,
there is still there's a higher percentage that the kid runs away now, for various reasons. But the percentage that someone scooped them up and did something terrible is much much higher than it ever was before.
the areas I've lived in as a parent, gangs really haven't been an issue per se. Yes, we have some in Peoria. There's definitely some in Tennessee, Nashville area, but they weren't the things you had to worry about, like let's say L.A., Chicago, New York, your major metropolises.
LA it's weird because they keep their head down. But places like Detroit, New York, etc.
Even Chicago's not too bad, honestly, when it comes to gang violence. Everybody's, I don't know,
I think with Chicago, from what it seems like, I could be wrong, is there's lots and lots and lots and lots of tiny little groups that you could call a gang, and the large numbers of black kids that are getting shot every weekend is just various beefs and lots of guns. I mean, how many times have you heard of a story or heard people talking about people just finding bags of guns just next to a dumpster?
I actually I haven't heard of anything of that nature since the early 2000s.
Oh, really? It's a regular thing, especially near schools.
Yeah.
But the guns just get scooped up by the kids and they don't talk about it. Occasionally they do.
I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It's a rarity for me. I mean, I think the last thing I heard anybody finding anywhere near school was a bag of money.
But it makes you have to conclude, or at least for me, that someone's literally obtaining guns and then just leaving them for people to find to shoot themselves, which is a really insidious, ugly plot to have a certain kind of people off themselves.
Oh no, I don't disagree. I don't disagree. Like I said, I don't hear. I mean, honestly, the news I get from Illinois is our governor's doing this, our president's doing that, our homeless issue, which winter is, not to sound like a Stark, but winter is coming.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's weird. Here, we've got the biggest homeless population in the entire country. But where I live, because it's the high desert, they go elsewhere. But then when it gets cold, they come here, which is weird. I mean, I know has to do with the weather and being outdoors, the exposure and things like that. But
the desert is the last place I want to be homeless at because, yeah, it's hot as hell during the day, but when the sun goes down, there's nothing there to store the heat. It gets cold as hell.
Mm-hmm.
So,
in comparison, it's not Canada cold, but when you have a day that starts out at 90, gets up to 120, and then drops to 50 or 60, that can mess you up physically. When it comes to literally exposure.
Yeah.
One of the top 3-4 things on the preppers list that you have to worry about. Because which is weird because I was trying to talk to some people about survival techniques and things that D&D characters never ever do but should be made to do.
Yeah.
Do you know what it's like to sleep outdoors on a pile of leaves or sticks instead of a nice sleeping bag? Or you're not, the next day you are trash.
Well, yeah. Well, not a sleeping bag. When I went camping with my uncle who served in the military, it was military style camping, which not necessarily means a tent, tarp. We always had a rolled up blanket, but we're not talking about your comforter. We're talking about not thin, but not super thick either.
A good wool blanket should be number one.
Oh yeah, the ground will just soak the heat right out of you. I mean, yes, you can, depending on where you are, you can lay down ferns, or there's a way to build a bed.
Yeah. There's if all you have is a knife, which should be bare minimum.
Yeah.
With a knife you can do a lot of things to create a lean-to, create your fire, split wood, a whole bunch of things. But it is going back all the way to the beginning. Gygax and Arneson weren't exactly campers. They may have done
I saw pictures of Gygax. I don't see him knowing what grass is outside of mowing it. No, the first
Arneson
thing
was worse.
right.
Arneson was worse. He was even far more of an academic, to where they wouldn't. You drop him in the middle of the woods with a knife and maybe a bit lighter, and they would be trashed the next day, or a week from then they'd be dead.
I've gone primitive camping with my uncle a few times.
Done it as well.
And what?
Oh, I've done it as well, and there's some basics, right? Like I keep harping on, if you don't get a good night's rest outdoors, indoors
You're
it's easier, but outdoors,
you're trash. You're just done the next day.
and then you get beset by some bandits or kobolds or orcs, or God help you, a troll.
Yeah.
That troll has got no negatives, and you're looking at -2s, -4s to swing and hit and damage and all kinds of crap.
I've
And then if you try to run, yeah, after 10 minutes, you're done. You're
I've
pooped.
said this before in other people's streams and definitely in this one a few times that if I'm running a party and they're out in the forest, they're making from A to B, and I won't penalize them depending on what armor they're wearing. A lot of that armor, sleeping in armor, is bullshit. There's some armor you just can't sleep in, but there's a lot of armor you can sleep in and be just fine.
Mhm.
For example, no, you don't want to sleep in plate mail. You can do it, but it's going to suck hard. But you can do it in leather and chainmail and be fine the next day. But,
Absolutely.
but if you're out in the woods, the bare minimum
Chainmail's
you
a little
need,
rougher because it depends on the temperature.
which one?
And chainmail depends on the temperature. It will suck the heat out of you. And it depends on what you lay on, as opposed to ground, leaves,
Well, most
twigs.
people, when people wore chainmail, there was a fabric tunic. There was some kind of tunic underneath the chainmail.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
few people
Like a
wore,
gambeson, I think they call it, or
yeah.
something like that, or
Does
brigand.
the D&D fantasy where barbarians or whatever are walking around with a chainmail shirt on with no shirt on, no clothing underneath? It's bullshit. It's bullshit. It is what it
Mhm.
is. But chainmail is still, depending on how tight the rivets are, how the links are, depends on how much movement you have. Now, if you're wearing basic chainmail, you still have a fair amount of movement. You have fabric underneath it. Yeah, the metal is not going to be nice, but it's not like the end of the world. If it's a
But
King's weave is a tight weave where you can still move, but it's more stiff.
mhm.
Your dexterity is not as given as it is with a loose weave. Now, with that being said, I will penalize a party for not starting a fire. It doesn't have to be a roaring fire, but if you're camping outside, you need fire for 3 different reasons: security, because it normally keeps animals away;
Mm,
heat, and some kind of light. You're not going to see outside a certain radius, but you are going to see anything that gets too damn close.
well, not just that, but like, you can't see to cook. You can't cook. You
You
can't
can't,
see where
yeah.
your equipment is. You can't see who's near you, what's going on. Just a million different little things that, and obviously, if you're on a stealth operation, you can still have a fire. Is it called a Navajo fire pit or Apache fire pit, where you dig straight down and then you dig another hole and you make like this tunnel and the fire's down at the bottom of the
I
tunnel,
don't know the name of it, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
and you can have that, and you won't get much light, but you'll get the heat. You'll be able to cook, and the smoke is partially dissipated because of the process, and
Yeah,
it
and
can
not
feed.
every fire needs to be a roaring fire. You can have a low lit fire or a
But at
low.
the same time, if you have the opportunity to have a big old roaring campfire, you probably should. You
That
know,
causes its own problems. You're going through fuel.
people see you.
Yeah,
You're attractive to intelligent creatures, and you could be easily surrounded and ambushed, that way. But if you're not being chased, you're not being hunted, and you're traveling through relatively safe woods, you should probably enjoy it while you can, because as you get closer to the dungeon or whatever, you're going to need to be a little bit more careful. That's why, a ranger in any party is just like, okay, you're golden. You got a first, second, third level ranger. You know all the crap. He'll teach you how to do all the stuff. Um,
I was playing a ranger, and for more or less
I
the
was
same argument, I was playing a ranger, and for more or less the same argument, only to realize this third session is like, oh, this is an urban campaign. My ranger is going to be kind of useless.
not true at all.
Well,
There's all kinds of little things you can use. Sure, you may not be able to track someone across a cobblestone road,
right.
but you still know some basics of climbing and sneaking and
I found that the rogue was definitely more useful in that campaign than my ranger was. And that's not his fault for playing a ranger, nor not my or for playing a rogue, nor was it my fault for playing a ranger. Is just if we went out in the forest, I was going to be in a better standing than the rogue, but we're in a city where it's a give and take.
and any good GM should let you know that, hey, you know, for the beginning or whatever, you're not gonna, you're just a fighter, you know, maybe good with a bow, maybe some penalties because you aren't a straight fighter until eventually you go out of town. But if you're not even going to do that, then they should let you know, hey, I have no intention. And even then, it really shouldn't be that way because you should be in charge of what you guys are doing, and in the beginning, and the beginning could last a good long while. There could be, some railroad. You guys are going to start out doing this because I'm not just having you meet in a tavern,
Yeah.
you know, or you've been best friends your whole life. That's just as trite and played out.
There's
Or
definitely a time and place for that thought processing, especially when you're gaming with younger kids. I think going that route just to get them the concept
yeah,
of
but I mean, I really don't feel comfortable having 12 and 14-year olds in a bar fight.
well, no, I would never put it in that situation, but I agree with what you're saying. But going back to like let's go Stranger Things. That is a group of kids who knew each other from the gaming neighborhood in school.
Mhm.
They are a party to them, they are a party. Now, if you use that thing, it's not a tavern you're getting a fight with. They're getting a fight at, I don't know, the stockyard. Or, but I get what you're saying. You just have to change it out. Hey,
Walk shop or
what?
the local library or the you know I don't know, you come up with something. And
Right. No, I completely. Well, American taverns are a whole lot different than like European taverns. I mean, to be completely honest, I mean, I'm not saying a bunch of 10-year-olds should be hanging out even at a pub in Ireland, but it's not uncommon to see a bunch of 15, 16-year-old kids hanging out at a pub. It varies where you're at.
and nowadays there are more activities that have nothing to do with drinking, whereas back then there were fewer.
Right.
They didn't have billiards or video games or music, a jukebox or whatever. um
Well, they did have the local, like a bard might be coming through who's a storyteller or something of that nature. But yeah,
and in which case the parents would bring the kid at night for maybe an evening meal out and hear a story, and they had their actual adult parent supervision, whereas now you just
yeah. So
there's some little differences, and if they're not your kids, or family or something like that, it might be kind of, Jackie's friends I've heard them. The whole game was in a freaking tavern. They're getting in a bar fight. They've heard the tropes and the cliches, and they're teenagers, so they can kind of pretend and handle it. But you know, I'm
it,
like a done with that.
well,
Uh,
you're further down the race than they are. or the path or whatever,
Yeah.
all
They
not
have
all
to.
gamers, but most gamers,
I,
especially.
I like to like give them a job. My standard go to, and even in the module I'm writing, they've already hired on as members of a caravan going from point A to point B. When they get to point B, they can decide whatever the hell they want,
Oh yeah.
But from point A to point B, there's going to be a couple of random encounters, maybe something, maybe they might see a dungeon off in the distance or something, and they can go do those things. And then when they get to the end of the road, they get a big, nice paycheck. Here's some extra gold. You got paid for guarding the caravan and maybe some experience, etc. And now, what do you want to do?
Now, yeah, it's like we got a couple. Moving cattle for a perfect example is a good one too.
That's
These
a,
guys
that's
are going to be working with the cattle. Your job is to scout ahead and watch out for me. That's it. That's your entire job as your security. And you know, back in the day, they would send kids out they would send 10, 11, 12-year-old kids. Well, back then, it's a whole different mindset though too, to go watch a flock,
yeah.
a sheep or whatever.
Mhm.
So there's a
Maybe even
realm of
overnight by themselves, because
yeah.
they have to get used to it because that's what their parents did. That's what they were going to do, and an extra hand, working the shift, so to speak. You know, you don't need to be that old to scare off wolves or coyotes watching sheep.
Especially if you had a sheepdog with you or a couple sheepdogs with you.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I don't think the modern person, not sure I put this. I don't think the how should I put this?
Average.
Average person, unless it is an interest of you to actually go camping, fishing, and stuff like that, even hits most people's radar. There's definitely city kids that grow up into city adults.
Mhm.
When I was in high school, I was in a class, and one of the teachers basically asked everybody, "What's your plan for the future?" I was living in East Peoria, Illinois. Caterpillar is a big business here for a while.
Mhm.
Well, I'm gonna go work at Cat because my grandpa did, my dad does, and I'm like, don't you want to see the rest of the world? No, my world ends at the end of the county. And
Just
to
like
me,
it's just like the hobbits in the Hobbit.
yeah,
This is the farthest I've ever been away from home.
that to me is really depressing. It's a
But at the
big
same, but at the
work.
same time, for some people, it's perfect.
I am just not one of those people. You don't know the next town over, your future wife could possibly be in, and your or whatever. And
Mhm.
if you settle yourself in a small location, I get that some people that's what some people are into.
It's not. I hate to be that guy, but it may be all they're cut out for.
Uh, that's fair. That's a decent argument. I just knew back in high school, it's like I want to see the rest of this country. I don't want to be. I don't want to be lashed. Not lashed. I don't want to be chained to a whatever for the
Mhm.
next 60 years. Then I get to retire. Then I might be able to go see the rest of the world. There's reasons why people kick their kids out a while
Mhm.
ago, especially if they had money. Okay, you're done with this section of your life. Go see the rest of the world. Come back in 6 to 8 months. Go
Or
forth and
4 to 6 years.
go forth and spread your oats. You know,
Well, I don't know about that anymore, but
I'm
definitely,
talking back in
definitely.
the day. I'm not talking about now. I'm talking about back in the day because you can go out and find a trade that your area does not have and bring it back.
Mhm.
Eh,
or find that you want to, that isn't it like right after high school that kids do the pre-college, you know, vacation trip, to go backpacking through Europe, which I don't think happens anymore.
Very rarely does it happen. Out of
Well, yeah,
most of the guys,
it does, but then it makes the news because they're coming home in a box.
it's always
When
been
they
a
go to
dangerous.
India or Pakistan or some
Yeah,
other crazy place that you know,
Well, let's
they're
not
not
kid
real about that.
ourselves. This world has always been a dangerous place for stupid people.
Mhm.
And if you're
Even
smart about it,
smart, intelligent, well trained people can meet a horrible end. I used to watch the
that's
Weather Channel.
true.
I used to
I
watch
mean,
the Weather Channel all the time. I don't anymore. But they used to have, I forget what the name of the show was, but different people getting lost in the woods and their story of how they got back. There was one episode I actually knew the couple that got lost out here in California. I used to hang out with them. They were friends of my ex-girlfriend, and we hung out numerous times and showed them their story about they went out to the desert to just go do some mushrooms. Basically, they didn't say that in the video, but I knew them, and they got lost, and they spent days and days and days circling around trying to find their way back home. And yeah,
when I was in high school, 9/11 just happened. All my buddies, and I'm not talking like I had 10, 11 friends. I had in high school the maximum number of 5. I've never been a person that like has to be in a room full of friends. 4 good friends, 5 good friends, and I'm solid. And out of that 5, maybe 2 of them are your really best friends, and the other ones are just friends.
mhm.
And 9/11 happened. And we all got the same idea roughly about the same time. It's like, I'm gonna join the military. A, college, B, it's the right thing to do, and C, it gets us the fuck out of here.
Mhm.
Uh we all went to the recruiter at the same time. Yes, 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 point at me. No, because I took Ritalin. It wasn't because I was flat footed, but it's because I took Ritalin. And so they went off and only one of them came back. So I already got to know. My aunt, I love my aunt. Don't get me wrong. I truly love my aunt. She was is a wonderful lady. And she was scared that I joined the military and I'd never come home. I'd come home, but in a box,
Mhm.
which is it's fair.
Depends on which branch you go into, but yeah,
We're all wanting to be Marines.
you go into the Air Force or the Navy, and you're
The
coming
like
back.
what? Yeah, yeah, yeah. So she's like, tell you what, and this is after I basically got told no. You don't join the service right now. Me and your uncle will pay for you to go to Europe and go backpacking in Italy or wherever you want. Go have like a couple months of life before you just sign the dotted line, which is, awesome. With her not knowing that they already said no, I said, yes, ma'am. And when I got back, I got a pamphlet, a vanilla folder in my hand. It's like, well, this is a college that accepts you on a rugby scholarship. I'm like, I don't remember, I don't remember trying out for a rugby. Okay. And it wasn't that my aunt was unpatriotic. She just didn't want her nephew to come back in a box.
Mhm.
And I can't be mad at I don't think anybody could really be mad at her for that.
No, no, but had you like I said, gone into the Navy, Coast Guard, or Air Force, you'd have still done the thing, and you know,
With
been.
me, it's all or nothing. It just how
Don't get
I
me
am.
wrong, both Navy and Air Force has their own
Oh yeah.
adage.
Yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing with it, but I like boats. I already spent half my life on one boat or the other. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life on a boat.
I would
And
have never. When I thought about it, the Navy was the last place I would have joined.
and
Uh,
do you think they would have put me in a jet or anything that
oh, they don't put
flies?
anybody. Nobody. I mean, it's the the best of the best of the best that do that.
Right.
Everybody else does something else, and they got
And
plenty
my
of something else's to do. You know, there's lots of for every plane that goes up, it's like every army that goes out. In the old days, there were hundreds of people following behind to make sure that army did what it needed to do. Just like ours, there are thousands. I mean, today there are probably still hundreds of people per soldier. In logistics and
oh, and
all that
I
stuff.
get that. I just didn't want to be in I didn't want to be a cook. I didn't want to make fine or make clean water. I wanted to, be Billy Badass.
That's what
And,
everybody joins for, and even that, unless you go Army,
yeah,
most people don't do that.
right.
They
Army or
become
Marines, but yeah, and
Army.
space
Yeah.
and Space Force wasn't an option back then. Hey, per. Um.
We
So
have people in the comment section.
yeah,
He's
he's
paying no
right.
attention. Hey, what's up, Per? Long time no see, man.
So I got to see Europe again as a young adult. I had a great time in Italy. I spoke a little bit of the language. I can muddle my way through Italian at the point. I went back through Ireland. I saw some family members. Best thing for me is to go over to Ireland because I don't have to pay for hotels. I have to pitch in on food and drinks. Outside of that, everything else is covered. If you're visiting family, it tends to be a tad bit cheaper.
Sure. Just nowadays, you know,
Italy, but with the hostels and a few other things, you can back then. I don't know about now, but you could backpack Italy fairly cheap on the cheap.
yeah. I hear you. This is the third show I've been on, including my own. I did 3 hours with DM James, 3 hours on my show. We're going to do another 23 and a half minutes ish, and then I'm calling it a night.
You know my rule: when the cigar is gone, I'm gone. So let's talk
Well,
about getting lost in the woods. I've never had that problem, but tonight my mom got lost in a bar.
I don't get lost either. Um, I haven't tried in the woods, to get lost and get my way out. But I'm pretty confident that unless you put a bag over my head and drop me somewhere, I'd be able to find my way back to the road. Just
You just look for certain landmarks and you just run with it. If I know the car is next to the river that is going and the stream is going this way and the car is that way, I'm going to follow the river. My uncle, like I said, my uncle was a paratrooper Army Ranger. So this was hard school.
was it a large bar?
No. So he'd get us nice and lost. He knew exactly where we were at. He knew, but I didn't because we'd be nice and lost. He's like, "All right, boy, you get us home." And we're not talking a half an hour walk. We're talking two days out.
I got a question for you, and maybe Per too, if he wants to join in on this. Um, when people are making a first level character, right? And it really doesn't matter what game, but let's just, it's probably gonna, be more D&D ish kind of thing. Um, how hard do you penalize them in what they own, and like how much money they have to spend on their equipment? Are you generous? Are you tight fisted? You get nothing? Do you care?
I say I'm running Pathfinder.
Mhm.
You have depends on your class. You have X amount of gold.
Mhm.
Some classes have more gold than others.
Mhm.
You can buy whatever when you run out of gold, you run out of gold.
Mhm.
Then, but I don't penalize them because it's a set amount.
Mhm. Would you ever give them more?
No.
Did you ever give them a bonus of an item or something, piece of equipment that they're going to need?
I will normally, if I know, how should I put this? If I know within the first two sessions that the party needs, like the fighter needs a better sword or the ranger needs a better bow or whatever, it will appear in the treasure loot.
Sure, sure.
But
Okay, let me gear it a little more specifically. Would you ever insist or make it so that the fighters could not afford even leather armor?
No, I know. No. Now, what I will do is like hypothetically, let's say you're a fighter and you're not going to be able to afford full plate. You
No, of
can
course.
you can afford chainmail and you kind of can afford leather. Now, what I will do was, well, we have this leather suit, this leather armor you can buy. It's been used. It's lightly rough. So it's, if the AC4 is this, I knock it down a point.
Hmm.
But no, I'm not going to say, no, you cannot have this. But there's going to be, it's like buying your first car, right? It's not going to be a Porsche. It's going to be some beater.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I was just like if they rolled really, really like say you get to roll 3d6 times 10 and they rolled 3 1s.
Depends on what class.
Fighter.
If they're a cleric, the church will give them something.
If
If
they were
they're
a fighter
a fighter,
and they rolled 30 gold, that's it.
sometimes I'm like, I didn't see that roll. Please roll it again. I can be, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If they get hosed that way,
There are so many games out there that, like Palladium. You've played Palladium, right?
once.
Every Palladium game that I've ever looked at, starting characters get more, literally more gear than they should be able to carry. And then
But
maybe
you don't
even
level in Palladium, right?
there's level.
Is there level? I mean, I don't know. I mean, fifth
I
edition,
know it varies from game to game,
right? With
but
fifth,
I can't imagine, uh, wanting to send them out dirt poor,
no,
just um,
no.
because there's a lot of mentalities out there where it's like, they call it mud sword, keep them poor and they get nothing to start with, and every single coin is a freaking celebration and things like that. Finding an actual sword is like, oh my gosh, this is great, or things like that.
I'm
Um,
not saying that's bad DMing, but there's no reason to be that much of a dick.
here's I don't know for how long you've been playing, but when we started playing back in the 70s, that's what the way it was. You got nothing, and you were happy to just be playing. You got maybe a dagger and a couple of torches. That's it. It could be that brutal.
That's rough.
And it's somehow making it to second level. Or whatever. Was you're still playing. That's all that matters. But as 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 time grew on, we, it's like this. No character, no character's parents would let them go off into the great wild woods, on an adventure without handing them some stuff. Mom would fill your bag, which you would have, or your backpack with some food and some water. Maybe you had your old man's sword, maybe you had some, I mean, certain things like torches. You shouldn't have to pay for torches. They're so easy to make. You know what I mean? Um, there's certain things that you just
Right.
you,
I get where you're coming
your
from.
village would have to be so desperate that they're sending out teenagers to go save the town with nothing. You just go, good luck. It's just, and if you were a fighter, you became a fighter how? Oh, by serving in the military, maybe to protect your village or something, and you know they took everything away and went, here, go. You're done being in the service. You did your year or two, and now we're going to take somebody else. No,
No, you're gonna go home. You're
you'd
gonna
have
go home
fired
with
the
your
blade
kids.
with a shield, a helmet. Maybe something less than chainmail, but you're not walking out into the woods as a fighter with a sword in your clothes, and that's it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
just
What I liked about 5th edition when it comes to equipment was depending on your class you had a list of things that you could have. Uh, it's like if you're a fighter, you have an option before you can have a sword or an axe. You can have chain or leather armor. You can have, there was a list,
Mhm,
and you had to pick something. It wasn't anything fancy, but it was the minimum
mhm,
of what a character should have. And
mhm.
I have my issues. Don't get me wrong. I have my issues with 5th edition, but at least when it came to equipment, it was fair. It was, it was modest, but it was fair. But no, I don't rickroll my characters that way. If there's you said 3d6 times 10, if I get a guy who play or a woman play rolled all ones, I'm like, I'm sorry, I got something in my eye. Would you please roll that again?
Maybe, maybe
I mean,
I would just by the time by the time they left the village, the town, the city, whatever, there's certain things. I mean, we were talking about camping earlier. You don't go camping with whatever just happens to be in your vehicle and hope for the best. You pack shit. Boy Scouts when they go camping, the Cub Master or whatever the Scout Master says, here's a list. You better have these things so you can take care of your own needs while you're there. If you're in the military, our guys, even going back to, WW1, they would carry between 25 and 65-pound packs. And that wasn't all just bullets and your
yeah,
rifle. That was 65 pounds of gear plus your rifle. Plus, some of that might have been your ammo, but you had your bedroll, your tent, or your half tent, because sometimes, like in the 1800s, you'd get a half tent, and you and another guy would put the tent together, and you'd have a full tent, your bedroll, your change of
I
clothes, maybe,
was I
your
was
canteen, your mess kit,
right.
bandages, all
I
kinds of
was
crap.
reading something about how the Roman army did it. If a group of five if it was a party, a group of five,
The
one of the
squad.
five people would be required to carry a cooking vessel with them, it being a pot, whatever. And their
Mhm.
sole job was make food for not five, 10. Now, 10 people, that one of them would be required to go and basically, yes, fight, of course, but his sole job was to make food for the other 9 people. So his kit was a little bit more unique than the other 9.
Mhm. Mhm. And another thing, you know, foraging and hunting, etc., along the way have to be a must, especially water. A lot of people, I know they just they don't do it. It's like I don't care about food, water, etc. Shelter. We're just going to hand wave all of that, and I'm like, then why? So basically, my character doesn't need to eat or drink. Somehow, I magically never have to worry about that because it's too much record keeping and bogs the story and the game down. And I'm like, you're just teaching people to when the actual emergency comes that they're going to be helpless and lost versus you could teach them through gameplay, hey, you need to travel along the river as long as possible to get to Mount Doom because you anywhere else there's not water. You're not going to just find lakes and ponds in the forest, just out of you just there happens to be one every couple of days along the way. You cannot carry 7 days worth of water on you for a week. That's each gallon of water is like
Every
8.3.
person should be required to at least carry a gallon of water on them.
That's only one day.
Yeah, at least,
And
I
that's
said,
8.34 pounds of gear to carry 1 gallon of water.
Rations to me, I don't think rations should be a certain degree percentage of it of your pack. But at the same time, you should at least have one person in the party that has the ability to. It might not be deer every night. Sometimes it's just going to be
Squirrel or pigeon
mushrooms,
or whatever.
whatever, forage.
Snake.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that falls underneath somewhat of the ranger's job. Rangers, to a certain degree, should be have the ability to hunt, to find resources off the land to help feed his party. It's like in earlier days of Bruce's campaign. If we're following, and you were there for some of it, if we're following a river, right, and we're breaking up, I'm setting up a couple lines to sit overnight so we had food in the morning.
Right, but I mean, it's like this. If you're going to hand wave water and food and bathing and cleaning, etc., then why are you not doing that with combat? Why
Right.
aren't you doing that with, money? Oh, you've got enough money. Well, how much do I find? Oh, don't worry about it. You got enough. No, you need, it's a resource that you have to manage to survive, just like your hit points. I was like, how many hit points you have? Ah, it don't matter. The cleric healed me. Well, yeah, not all the way. Well, I'm fine. Don't worry about it. Well, according to my records, you're down to 1 hit point, or you're dead. Well, no, I'm not. I still want to play. You got to have some verisimilitude, and you've got to keep track of things. If I find out that you ran out of arrows 18 encounters ago, and you keep shooting your bow at my monsters, you got to keep track of your arrows, right? I mean, sure, you can recover some arrows, but not always. It's 1 in 3 arrow is
Well,
recoverable.
an archer, I'm of the speaking about arrows, I'm of the opinion that any archer worth his salt should be able to make his own fucking arrows. It's not hard.
Okay, 2 things. One, um, how just because you know how to use a bow doesn't mean you know how to use the tools to make an arrow.
You should though. You really should.
Yeah, but if you're 16, you might not. Or if
I
you just learned the bow because you went up a level, you don't.
I will give you I will but yes, I will not argue
You
that.
got to keep track of that. Just because you know how to use a sword does not mean you know how to sharpen it properly. You might think you do,
Right.
or just because you own a suit of chainmail doesn't mean you know how to fix it.
With certain campaigns I've been in, anytime we go to a town that has any kind of market per se, a smithy, or I would always buy a quiver. I would double pack, triple pack arrows.
Absolutely, because that's a resource you have to manage.
Right.
And like with rations should be used when you run out of fresh food because the rations, depending on precisely what they were made of, were designed to last for months, if not years, in the state that you get them, so you don't have to eat them. So if you eat your rations first, you probably missed the first 7 days of the journey of free food from hunting and foraging, and then when you get into you know harsher climates and environments, that's when you'd be like, oh crap, we should have ate those deer we saw last week instead of our rations. Now there's no deer.
No, I don't disagree with you. I completely agree. Go through the resources that are in your surrounding before you go through your rations.
Exactly, per. You might not have the skills to take care of those things and do those things, which is another resource. Your skills and your knowledge are another resource your character has to play with. And if your character is the noble who's now bereft of servants and flunkies, you should play like that character. You're a fish out of water now. You don't have people waiting on you hand and foot.
I don't know about all the different systems out there because there are a lot. With Pathfinder, on the skills, it had a thing called craft, and I would always put bow making which bow making and most of the DMs I dealt with, bow making and arrows are kind of they were just linked. It's just so my rank,
In
my
those days they
level,
weren't
what?
in not in white box because they didn't care, but in 1E, Bower and Fletcher were two different skills.
Oh, really? Okay. Pathfinder, they were kind of intermingled, and
Because
I'd always
technically there's a word for each for a reason. Your family, Fletcher, the name Fletcher comes from families. That's what they did. They made arrows. They didn't make bows. The neighbor probably made the bow. They made the arrows because their whole family knew where to get the feathers, knew how to do the wood, etc. Whereas the other family, they, you know, Boyer. I've
yeah,
known people with that last name because that's what their ancient ancestors did. They made the bows. Sure, if they were smart, they would, learn how to make the arrows or make the bows or whatever. But it wasn't always the case. In some parts, your family made shoes going back as far as people can remember, and you were going to make shoes too, and there was nothing you could do about it. You know,
right.
that's just
I
the way
always
it
what I'm
was.
saying, I'd always put at least up to, I don't know, 15 points in my craft bow slash arrows, because 15 plus my level plus bonuses, it equals out to a nice number. So my character
Mhm.
knows how to, even in early, level one, I'd always start putting points into the
Mhm.
skill because, as I said, if you're an archer, any archer worth his salt, he should be able to fix his bow, maintenance, I should say, maintenance his bow, and make his own arrows.
Mhm. And that's think about it. Like when I started playing these games, I was 12, 13, and 14 ish. But because I learned through the gameplay that you need to do this to do that kind of thing, I started trying to learn these things, these skills, so that if I was ever in that position, not that I ever was or would be, whisked away to Narnia, but I would, have some working idea. I would at least know what I didn't know how to do versus, there's known knowns and there's, unknown knowns, etc.
Right.
I knew that there were things that I would maybe want to learn to do that weren't going to be part of the curriculum at school. Tracking. I learned how to track animals really, really early on in life. Most people don't, can't tell the difference between, a dog and a wolf and a freaking roadrunner, or a rabbit. We've got all those out here. I showed Jackie when he was a little bitty kid. What do you think that is? What do you think those tracks are? What do you think those tracks are? Nope, you're wrong. It's a this. It's not a that. You know, but I knew that there were these skills out there that we weren't going to be taught in school, and playing D&D characters, you kind of at some point you wish you could be the character, you could
Yeah.
be that adventure, you could go on the adventure, you wouldn't be Ichabod Crane, fish out of water, in the wilderness, not knowing a damn thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The whole going backpacking through Europe. Well, you're gonna die if you don't know how to do some of the basic things. And there's a lot of ways you can learn them, but a lot of ways you can completely miss the boat when it comes to learning those skills. Just
Right.
not knowing that those skills existed. Like starting a fire. Everybody thinks, oh, I'll just bring matches or a lighter. Until you lose the matches or the lighter. What are you gonna do?
Uh, I I suck at bow drilling, but I know how to use flint and steel. I
Right?
know
Yeah, there's other ways to do it. There's not just the bow drill. There's I forget what they call it, where you rub the stick through the channel, and get that stick.
it's a friction fire.
Yeah.
No.
Um,
I know how to do some of them. I'm not great with a lot of them, but I am pretty good with flint and
but
steel.
you can. I've got a flint and steel on my keychains. I've never used them.
And magnesium bars are easy as hell to get your hands on.
That's
And
what
all
I'm
you do,
talking.
yeah. Um, No, I completely agree. Uh in theory, I've done it once just because I was curious if I could do it. I've started a fire with a plastic bag, some water, and the sunlight.
It can
It's a
be done.
trick.
It's fucking pain in the ass. It's one of the hardest ways to go, but you can do it
I
if you
was
know.
curious to see if I can do it, and I did it. And I'm like, okay, that's exactly not the, if the sun's down, you're fucked. But
That's why I know how to use a bow drill or any other the rubbing of sticks kind of thing.
yeah,
And they can wear you out. They can burn a crap ton of calories trying to get a fire started. You know that's
still,
why I laugh when I don't see the tinderbox and some of the other things on a character sheet. Most people don't even know what a tinderbox is.
yeah, I know. My uncle showed me how to start a fire. This is something he picked up while he was in prison. Same uncle. Uh, he showed me how to start a fire with a 9-volt battery and
Steel wool.
bubblegum wrapper.
You can do that too. Steel wool's a good one. But
Still
all
will.
those things, normally people think, a tinderbox is just a box with your flint and steel. There's char cloth. There's, kindling you can put in because, what if you're in a place, where there isn't, what you're looking for. There's a lot of, we in the prepper community, we have all those things. We'll have lighters, matches, steel wool, a battery, an empty plastic bag, dryer lint, all kinds of weird shit. You can fit into a Mentos box. You know, and that's
Yeah.
your,
No, you get a
you know.
little metal tin. You punch
No,
some
I mean
holes
like a
in it.
friggin' Mentos
Oh
mints,
yeah,
like
yeah.
tiny little box, and that can literally mean the difference between life and death.
Oh yeah. No, I completely agree. I know how to make my own char cloth. It's not hard. You can do it in
You
the
get a
oven.
Mentos box, put some cloth in it, and throw it in the fire.
Punch some holes into it. Yeah. No, I
I don't know that we ever did the holes in the
that's the
cloth.
way I was taught.
Okay.
You can do it in the oven.
Yeah.
I will if I know I have a big camping trip, I'll get some dryer lint, some beeswax. I'll make in a egg carton. I fill the egg carton with the lint, pour the beeswax on top of it, cut it out, and I got little fire starters. It's not a little bit of
Pine
thinking goes.
cones are great. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that to me, I know a lot of people just want to hand wave all that crap, but I mean, one of the greatest fantasy stories of all time, that being Lord of the Rings, Frodo and Sam were in the worst position imaginable. And look, when Sam left the Shire, he was carrying a mountain of gear, but by the end, he was carrying nothing
He
but
was carrying
Frodo.
Frodo.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
no.
and you can guarantee, if it weren't for racial restrictions on, character classes and things like that, Sam walked back home like a first level ranger minimum. You know what I mean?
I give him a little bit more than the first level, but yeah, I understand.
He didn't start out that way, and he had to
No,
learn.
no.
He had to learn the hardest way possible, from getting stuck out there in Mordor, and coming back to tell the tale. You know, people, they just, nowadays I find they just want to go to the dungeon. Magically they're there, and they go in the room, they kick the doors down, they kill the monsters, take the treasure, and repeat and rinse. And I'm like, you're missing out on some of the best parts. And it's only because I used to play like that too. I used to do all those things. It's not until you get to a certain point, of maturity or an age or whatever, or you've just done all the other things, to where you kind of crave the harsher things that they may seem mundane, but
Yeah.
if you've never shivered your ass off in the woods, you know,
Oh yeah. You don't know.
you come back and you you can feel those experience points racking up when you walk back into the house. You know what I mean? You're
Oh
like,
yeah.
that sucked, but I can feel the literal experience points settling into where they go, in my little till there, if you will.
Uh, Fuck. Now I remember the name of the soup. That's funny. Sorry. I was thinking of the name of the soup earlier today and just didn't fucking come to my mind, and it just not popped. Um, no. Seamus. Jade. As a DM, he will hold your feet to the fire the entire game so you get until you get the fucking point.
Which point is that?
That this is what your players need to have to be, you know.
Rope.
And Jade, you know how Jade is. He's very no bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And so, no, he's definitely made me a better gamer. I mean, hanging out with Bruce has made me a better gamer. Running my own campaign, experiences itself is its own best teacher. Now, with the shape I am physically right now, could I say I could go out in the woods right now and live the rest of my life? Yeah, I could live the rest of my life. It'd be like 3 weeks in total until I die. But if I
Well, I
didn't
mean,
have the
if you had something, like, you know, your kid or something like that, that you had to get back to,
yeah,
uh, you've got to have that hope and that motivation.
right.
Uh,
If I didn't have a bum knee, could I live out in the woods with the experience I have? I could do a full summer, maybe into fall, winter. I've never done much winter camping. I get the concept, but that's not something I'm exactly
mhm.
comfortable with. If nor is camping in a fucking desert. I have absolutely no idea how to make that fucking work. I'll figure it out,
Mhm.
but I mean, it's do your research. This goes with games. Do your research before you sign on to play any one character. Figure it out. Think about it. Just don't roll through the book and say, I want to play Johnny McFeelgood without, figuring out. If you play a bard, at least have the ability to understand the art of storytelling or how an instrument works.
Mhm.
If you're playing a fighter, I mean, I know very few of us take fencing lessons or whatever, but you can
Right,
kind of
but
muddle your way through it.
a lot of these skills, like for me, I didn't know they existed until I started playing, and then suddenly, well, I'll give you a perfect example. When I was 14, I didn't know what these were.
Oh, lockpicks?
I would have gone my whole life without ever knowing or caring. But as soon as I
Yeah,
found out and I had the
I
opportunity to buy a set, I bought a
I
set.
had
They're right
my
here.
first set of lockpicks by time I was 10 because I had some great uncles of ill repute on my grandma's side that taught me how to pop locks and
Yeah,
hot wire cars.
by the time I was 12, I wanted a pair, but in California, it wasn't until I was a little bit older and going to the gun shows with my dad that I was able to get a pair. It's not my first set, but you know, you can't pick a lock without those tools. You
Yeah,
know,
but playing today in modern society, playing a rogue that pops locks is pop. It's a lost. It's not. I'm not saying it's a lost art. It's just not a normal skill to have.
hmm
I mean, even bow. I'm an archer in real life. I go to the range as often as I can. I can make my own arrows, either by buying everything or making it myself.
hmm
Dogwood, a broken bottle, a mason jar, broken the bottom of a mason jar makes really good arrows. Dogwood or a straight somewhat of a straight wood, fucking bamboo makes a great shaft. and
Mhm.
duct tape.
Yeah, but
Those
a
three
lot of
things.
places, bamboo doesn't grow everywhere.
I get that. I'm just using that as an example of a
Mm-hmm.
really good, it's,
Because it's perfect, because in the right situation, it's already straight. You know what I mean?
right.
A lot of other wood doesn't come that way.
With
You can't
some
just
wood,
take.
you get wood nice and wet, nice wet, and you sit it on top, not sit on top, and you hold it above a fire. Eventually, it will never be straight as a board, but you can eventually straighten out to a reasonable amount. A lot of people don't know this. When they'd make I read good things about bows made of English. Yeah, there's actually a tree here that makes better bows. I can't think of the name of it. It produces this great big greenish yellow ball I call monkey brains. It has a different name for it. It's something apple, but that wood is actually better than the English that the one you're talking about, per. Hickory actually makes a halfway decent bow.
Mhm.
Stay away from your hardwoods because they just don't flex.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, it's man. Half my family came from Knoxville, Tennessee. We're a bunch of Appalachian Americans down there. If you can't if you can't figure it out for yourself, then you're just fucked. Um, Plus, hard times makes hard people. So no, I have several bows. I have 3 English longbows. I have 2 or 3 recurves, breakdown recurves, and I got 2 compound bows. And right now, my favorite bow to play with half the damn time for accuracy, speed, and distance is my recurves.
I've got a nice bear recurve breakdown.
Yeah,
It's nice. I've had that. Honestly, I probably had it longer than you've been alive.
that wouldn't surprise me. A good bow will last you a lot. A good bow will last you a lifetime if you maintenance it and treat it with the respect that it deserves. And that goes back to gear. Hypothetically, let's say your father's a hunter. If he's a hunter, he's going to have 1 or 2 bows. He might not give you his favorite bow, but he's going to teach you from a kid up how to use a bow, and he's most likely going to give you a bow before you leave the house.
Mhm. But what I find, unfortunately, is a lot of DMs will let you make these dumb mistakes that in character would never happen, like what you set out with. You
Yeah,
know, your family or your former boss or employer.
you're
Like if you were a wizard, a mage,
right.
right? First level magic user, they're not going to let you out when you only know one freaking spell. You know what I mean? You've got 3 hit points. You know one spell, and your stats are shit.
Right.
They're going to say, dude, you're going to die. You might as well just stay here, keep working with me. You know, 10 years from now, you'll thank me. You'll have 4 hit points, and you'll know a half a dozen spells.
I've always have had the opinion that wizards should not be like teenagers like the rest of the party. They should at least be in their 20s or mid 20s. They should be the
I,
oldest person
I
in
don't
the.
think age. It's like this. Okay, my son is 17 and he can do math I never learned in my whole 58 years of existence.
Well, as much as I
And
love
he
you as
knew
a.
that he knew that math at 17, which I equate math to being like sorcery, knowing hardcore facts and formulas, etc. Okay, because he's doing like trigonometry or whatever. Okay, I never even made it into algebra. Okay,
Yeah, as soon as they introduced the alphabet into math, I'm like, I'm getting off the train. This is my
which
stop.
equates to me is like the equivalent of being able to say, well, at 17 he could have been a second or third level magic user if that was a different kind of education. And the better the education, the younger you can be to graduate.
Okay, hear me out. Hear me out. Hear me out. To be a wizard, you have to learn spells, right? You're not a sorcerer. They don't have them. You don't naturally have the ability to. Well, you have the natural ability to cast spells. You just don't know how to as a wizard until you learn, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the more years that you are a apprentice to a master wizard, is the more spells and experience that you get, right?
Yes and no. If you were an orphan child and left at the doorstep of a 11th level magic user versus you were left at the doorstep of a 25th level magic user, who do you think is going to teach you better and faster?
I see your point.
And that's the same with education. In the old days, kids went to first grade and they were done. They learned how to read and write and math, and they were done. Okay.
Well,
And but over here in this more metropolitan, more cosmopolitan, city, miles away from the sticks, the kids go to school, until they're 8, and they're learning, the weather and whatever, other things. They're better at math. They're better at reading, you know, in a
well,
more
there's
advanced,
definitely
intelligent situation. You don't have
there's
to be 36 years old. If you
right.
look at
There's definitely though there's a difference between not urban, city education and rural farmer education, right? Because if you're a son to a farmer, yeah, you can go to school after the harvest, but I need you back in the field for
Mhm,
planting season. So we're talking what 4 months, 4 months
mhm.
out of the year of education over the next at best 3-4 years. And most people started with homeschooling before they even made it to a
But,
proper
but if
school.
you're if you're if your parents are thieves or magic users, you don't have to do any of that, and you can spend all year round learning faster. And if you're in a city,
I yeah.
there's no reason other than that's just the way it was in the stories that wizards were always old men, but yet that really doesn't make any sense when it comes to look at landed gentry and nobles and things like that. They had the opportunity to be lazy as shit, but they also had a better education compared to the same people at the same age.
I
They
read a
knew
book
way more.
series a while ago. If when a child is turns like 3 or 4, no, when a child turns 5, they were tested by a wizard,
Okay.
and if they had any ability to, if the magic was within them, the wizard would pay the family uh, gold. I can't remember the amount of gold. The kid would be picked up and taken to a school. It wasn't, or was taught magic, and I thought it was
They
really
have the right
interesting.
midichlorian count.
Yeah, that's how they become Jedi's. But no, it was. And now that I think about it, it kind of feels that way. But no, that was like, you know, well,
which
you
I
kid.
think is which I think sucks, honestly, because that means that you rolled up a character who's got an 18 intelligence, but because you weren't a magic user at first level, you could never decide later on you want to become a magic user.
I've
That's
never exactly
kind of
enjoyed that thought
the
processing.
whole
I've been
Harry
nice.
Potter chosen one, Anakin Skywalker. No, if you've got the stats and you want to do it, you can do it. Because I like
Well,
running multi-class characters later on in like D&D, where I've got a fighter, but he earns enough money, saves it up, and he's got a say a 15 intelligence, and he's willing to spend the 10 years or whatever it takes to become a first level magic user, so that when he graduates, he's a fifth level fighter, first level magic user. Couple adventures later, he can start using his sword and cast spells at the same time. Get a weird character that's a mix. Instead of just
we're multi-classing
vanilla.
as a DM. From even Jade was this way in a certain degree. If you want to be a wizard, but you want to multi-class in something else, you had to start with you had to start wizard for a couple levels, then you can bounce. Wizard always had to be your first class.
I had a character. Imagine this: you roll up a thief, right?
Yeah,
But you managed to get an 18 intelligence because you rolled down the line, right?
yeah.
And then you roll your age, and it turns out you started out at 15 years old. And after a couple adventures, not even a year of your life, you've made it up to 7th, 8th level thief, and you've got a crap ton of money socked away somewhere. And you're like, I'm 15. I want to become a magic user so I can be a better thief. And then you become a magic user 10 years later. You're 26 years old. You're a 7th level thief and a 1st level magic user. A couple more adventures later, you can cast invisibility. You're going to be the greatest thief ever.
Oh, my favorite thing with wizards is I take wizard for or the first like
Exactly. I mean, if you roll down the line, that kind of crap happens. Rolling down the line, I got an orc with an 18 charisma. So
that is a very charming orc.
Mhm.
My favorite thing was with the
I mean, you
wizard
get the -2, still an orc with a 16 charisma after the -2 is still, phenomenal.
yeah. I'll start off as a wizard because this was Jade's campaign. I do that for a couple levels and I hop into rogue because I had a high enough dex where I could be a rogue, and I got evasion at 2nd level. I have the ability to cast fireball, but if you run as a DM's rules as written, even if you disagree with it, but the rules say that as long as you pass your dex check, your reflex check, you're not going to get hurt by it, right? Rules as written.
Mhm.
I'm surrounded by bad guys. I cast fireball. Okay, we're going to cast fireball at my feet. Oh, okay. Keep in mind, I'm a rogue and I got evasion. I need to beat let's say a 23. I rolled altogether, I got a 25. He didn't like it, but rules as written
Mhm.
says I take no damage. Everybody else eats it around me as long if they fail their saves, but I didn't. I don't take half. I take nada. That's the problem. To a certain degree, that is the problem with running a game rules as written, because you'll get assholes like me that understand the rules
Yeah,
and how
I think the spirit of the rule was not to allow that.
that might be, but we're not talking about the spirit of the rule. We're talking about the letter of the rule.
Yeah, and if players of mine are looking to find loopholes and literally like break
I
the
right.
system,
It's not breaking if you're following the rules.
then
Just
the
because
bad guys are going to do the same thing.
that's fine.
All of them.
Right.
You'll find nothing but
What is good for the goose is good for the gander.
I do the same thing too. Over the years, per I absolutely despise rolling down the line because I don't want to run a cleric ever. But if I roll that 18 wisdom and the party says, well, you should roll a cleric, I'm going to be like, crumple paper. I'm going to roll up a new character. I won't run clerics. I just
Right.
won't.
No. I completely
And if I'm in
understand.
the mood to play, a bard or whatever, that's the best playing you're going to get out of me because that's what I'm here for. I want to do this,
Right.
But they say, oh well, you got to run a druid, which I don't mind, but something that I don't want to play, you know, chances are, I'm not going to be at my top of my game playing whatever character. So I always, I'm enthused to play this character that I haven't rolled up yet, but I want to play. I've never played, let's say, a barbarian. I want to play a barbarian. I'm in the mood to play a barbarian. Okay, cool. You're going to play a great barbarian. Just like when the same thing is true for DMs. It's like, hey, I got this great game. Check it out. Like, no, we're already in this campaign that you're running. Yeah, but I'm really enthused about this game. Nope. Okay. All right. We'll play the game we were playing, and you're not going to get the enthusiasm level in that game that you would have maybe gotten in the new game. So when your GM comes at you with a new game, indulge him for a little while. Just when that peters out, go back to the other game.
Yeah, put a pin in the game. That's not going anywhere. Make sure everybody's character
But
sheets.
just make sure when your GM says, "Hey, you want to go to the game store?" You go, "No."
And as I say, I completely understand the concept is what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Players can't do everything the monsters can do for multiple different reasons. But sometimes the monsters can't do what the player does. It's a nice flex. It doesn't always have to be balanced.
But you got to be careful because you could literally be teaching the monsters your tricks.
And I get that it's a risk reward scenario. That's fair.
And guys, I got to say goodnight.
Yeah,
way
I'm about
past-
done with my cigar anyways.
I'm past my bedtime, and I have to use the little GM's room, or I'm going to explode or have an accident. So, always good to see you, man. One of these days, you got to be on the show, whether it's mine or his. It would be
We'll
nice to
make
be
it
able to put
work.
a face to a name. I'm like that. Even if I only see you once, then I can like remember you better, and get an idea of when you're saying something, typing something, how you mean it, or what your face might be making, the expressions. uh and besides, you've been around the community forever, dude. I've known you for like 4 or 5 years now, and
We don't have to worry that your Shadow doesn't have to worry that you're another wanker that shows up on a show.
right. But at the same time, it would be nice to be able to put a face to a name.
All right. Well, for the 3 people out there watching the show, thank you. Shadow's got to go raid the water closet because he doesn't have a grown-up bathroom.
I have 3, but yeah.
You said a little DM's room. You
Oh
don't
no,
have
I mean, no,
Yeah,
no,
I
no,
know.
no.
I'm just fucking with you. Okay.
Hey, what's up, Kogo? Dude, I'm glad you're here actually. Because if you haven't already seen it, tomorrow's video is thanks to you. I owe you a big debt of gratitude because you helped me find something that had been in my head, and now just watch the video tomorrow morning. You'll see.
All right, everybody out there, y'all have a good night. Thanks for hanging out with
See you in the
us.
funny papers. And adios. I'm a ghost.
You're something, all right.
I'll see you later, Connell.